Hello and welcome back. Today we will be doing a rundown of Dev Diary number 73, which talks about the open beta and a 1.2 patch overview. I skimmed through it and we're going to go through it now and take a closer look and talk about some of the changes. So, as mentioned in our last Dev Diary, with some of the reach changes, we don't want to push it too much, which means what they're going to do is they're going to have an open beta for it, which is going to be buggy. So what's going to happen is they are going to do it in an open beta so that when people complain about the bugs, they'll be like, hey, it's an open beta, you didn't have to opt in. It's going to be less stable, so we'll see how it goes. The planned launch date for it is February 8th at 10 o'clock. So, because it seems that in general, and by in general I mean the one person who commented, people would prefer that I play on the open beta, so on February 8th, we will be switching to any new recording at that point will be on the open beta, so expect a lot of bugs. Hurrah! So this is kind of, what they're going to be going on. After the initial beta release, we plan on releasing 2 additional updates on the beta branch on a weekly basis containing additional bug fixes, performance improvements, etc. So it looks like the content is going to be, further. And then they also issue this warning: you should definitely not expect saves made in 1.2 to be backwards compatible with 1.12, which is the current live patch. Okay, so let's start to get into some of the changes and talk about it, because we want this rundown to be pretty quick. They kind of explain all the feature, or not the features, but the process of implementing this beta patch, or this open beta, which if you are interested, I suggest you go read, but I think a lot of people would rather just talk more about 1.2 and what the content in is going to be. In what was it, Dev Diary 71, we got the autonomous investment system changes, and in Dev Diary 72, we talked about greater differences in economic systems. Now they're just kind of giving us a list without any details about the stuff, and so I'm going to speculate and, talk about a little bit. I think that, or they do talk a little bit about this. So also some features will be in a less mature state than they will be in beta release. For example, strategic objectives will be limited to one country during the beta, but the intent is to expand this. I believe I read something in here that the strategic objectives will allow you to select for your military where it's going to try and fight towards, which is going to be quite nice because you can use it to, cut off access to, the ocean for, denying market access in some countries, for example, trying to surround the capital to deny market access to the rest of the country. This sort of thing will become possible if you have strategic objectives where you can, tell the AI what you want them to capture, which is going to be a bit interesting. So let's get into it. Strategic objectives for military campaigns, my understanding is that this is, you can tell your troops what provinces you want to capture, and they will go for it more in terms of AI. Customizable notification settings, this is great. I hate getting the mass migration events a ton. I know that I'm causing migration, you don't need to say it. Although the first one is always nice, because then you've made the big time. In-game music player, I don't care too much about this, but this is interesting. Or not interesting, but it's a nice feature. Key rebinding, I didn't even know you couldn't rebind keys, but apparently you'll be able to rebind it. Improvements and bug fixes. Performance optimization is going to be very nice. I hope that I can go up to 10,000 construction without it causing significant lag, because that's kind of what happens now. In my run where I went up to 69,000 construction, you haven't seen me play any more of that run because I can't fill the queue. At around 50,000 construction, the game just crashes, so okay. We have the greater differences in economic systems, which is what they discussed, which is going to change the investment pool transfer. I wish they did more changes in military rather than, having this autonomous investment changes and greater differences in economic systems. I wish that their focus was on the military, because the economic system in the game is kind of like what's best. And so they're improving the thing that's already good, but okay. More realistic modeling of trade routes, profits, and GDP. Do they talk about this at all later? No, they do not. And so this is kind of the first feature that they haven't talked about, and we could speculate about. And I'm not sure if it's what exactly they mean by modeling in terms of representation to the player. I know that in general, manufactured goods from the perspective of GDP look a lot more appealing. This is my understanding, and I'm not 100% certain in this, but manufactured goods inflate your GDP more than input goods. So, for example, wood and fabric, what happens is that, the buildings do not take into account as much the input costs as they do the output costs in GDP calculation. And so instead of calculating based on value added, they just calculate based on output, is my understanding of how GDP calculation works. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. But that means that the manufacturers that have a bunch more inputs than the rural goods, what the GDP calculation should be is their outputs less their inputs, and that's the value of their GDP, but instead it's just the outputs alone, and since they have a lot of inputs, it will inflate your GDP or make your GDP look way bigger. If your economy is actually a lot more productive than it looks when you're mostly agrarian, although going agrarian doesn't seem very good in the game at this current juncture, but I'm hoping that this, alongside, the trade route profits and this sort of thing, makes it so that it looks better to be agrarian. Or like the UI is more responsive to an agrarian approach and like properly represents your how big an economy you really are when you're just exporting a ton of fabric, and people are importing it, and you're getting GDP based off the fabric, but they're getting GDP based off of the clothes that they make with the fabric, without taking into account that they did not create the fabric itself in terms of like the GDP calculation, which is effectively my understanding of how it works now. Or last I heard this was discussed by a developer. This is how they said it was calculated. They said it was a problem. I think it was Paul who said it. But anyway, worldwide arable land revision and migration balancing. Oops, I forgot my mic is on the table, but this seems really big. Currently you can go into China and there are provinces that have like 1,500 arable land, and it's just like, the way the migration is calculated now is you will get a overpopulated or an overcrowded malus, and the malus is based on the total arable land that is there. And what you get is like this situation where in order to make the populations at the start of the game to make sense, you have to have a bunch of provinces in China that just have like 1,500 arable land. And I don't think this is balanced or accurate or like a good portrayal of like how much arable land relative to other countries. Like China is not so much more fertile that it doesn't really make sense to me. But it's just a mechanic that they have in place because if they didn't have it in place, if it wasn't based on the arable land, or it is based on the arable land, but if they didn't have 1,500, if they didn't have 1,500 arable land in all these Chinese provinces, all of their pops would just instantly migrate away because you'd be suffering this huge overcrowding malus. And so they have to have that much, but it leads to really unbalanced provinces where the Chinese provinces are just way better than any other province in the game because you have this potential for like 1,500. So like in terms of an infamy to resources return, taking Chinese provinces is the best if you're just going to conquer single provinces, and every other country you should kind of just puppet or protectorate in order to like conquer them. And so what I'm hoping this does is it detaches arable land from migration such that they can, first of all, arable land is much more balanced throughout the world. But second of all, they make it so it makes sense. Currently, it makes sense the way they have migration balanced, that China's going to have these 1,500 provinces, but it makes sense from a gameplay perspective in order to not have this mass exodus. But hopefully they figure out another system for overcrowding other than just arable land. That way arable land can be more balanced throughout the world. And I'm not sure it will, like, also just some countries it like feels really bad because you can't attract a lot of migrants because you have like no arable land. And I just like, I don't think that this is and like sometimes you move your capital because of the arable land, like just so you can migrate more people to your capital, stuff like this. And it's it currently seems to be a system that is not intuitive, and it doesn't really play to what you think the game should look like, but it's like an understandable mechanic. But hopefully this change it detaches the two, the arable land and migration, which is what it sounds like based on it. And then mega parties limited by tweaks to party formation and ideology. This seems fine to me. Sometimes you get a party that is so large and so incoherent that there's no way to balance your government to being legitimate, especially with the radicals event chain. Although generally speaking, when everyone is the same ideology, or every interest group has the leader with the same ideology, you tend to be a lot more coherent. But this seems like an improvement, but just a small tweak / imbalance. Talking about interface trade, to my knowledge, I have not seen in the game where they have improved the UI for showing pop consumption, and maybe I just haven't looked hard enough. But this is something they said they were going to have in 1.1, and they didn't have it, and it's one of the most important things. And you just currently have to go through 3 tooltip drop downs in order to see what your pops are consuming and how much they're paying for goods. And so this would be a nice UI change, but I probably just haven't looked hard enough. They said they were going to put it in 1.1. I guess I haven't checked super hard, but if they haven't put this in, putting this in would be good, especially for new players. I've just gotten used to using the triple tooltip thing to see what pops are consuming. But let's see. Trade panel overhaul for easier route management. This will be fantastic. Currently, it's it feels like I have to click in a lot of weird places, especially if I'm trying to do a large volume of trade with just a single country. I would like to just be able to look at their market and click their goods in their market and click export or click import. And currently, you have to look in their market, and then you have to open the outliner, and then you have to find the stuff in the outliner in particular, and it's just kind of it's a pain, and hopefully that makes it a little bit more clicky. More clarity on pop needs, convoys, radicals, and loyalists. Perfect. So this is what I was talking about. They said they were going to put this in 1.1. It's one of the most important piece of information you can get, and it's just very opaque. Is you have to get it through 3 tooltips. Convoys are also kind of hard to find, and radicals and loyalists, I don't really have a problem with how radicals and loyalists are represented, but certainly an improvement on this would be nice as well. Currently, or make it more transparent. A lot of times when you have a bunch of radicals, you aren't getting, the people who are radicalizing aren't in, so the more clarity just is always good. And currently, I don't really have a problem with the radicals loyalist clarity, but these other ones, I would like to have more clear. So this is great. Visual upgrades to map modes and lenses, such as showing infrastructure and employable pops. Oh my god. So currently, it will only show you peasants through the various things. And also when you click a building, when you go to build it, it'll stop showing you how many peasants are in the province, which is terrible. And also, this is an important difference from peasants, employable pops. Currently, the lenses do not show you how many unemployed people are in the province, I don't think. Or the lens does, but the outliner does not. Or the off to the left thing, the tab. And it's just, you just want access to this information. How many employable pops, which include both peasants and unemployed. And you have to, getting the information is annoying and difficult. You cannot sort by unemployment. When you're using the outliner or the sidebar thing. And so this is very frustrating. And so upgrades to these is going to be great. Hopefully infrastructure becomes less of a problem as the autonomous investment allows people to invest in infrastructure. I'm really hoping that the AI invests in infrastructure and it solves the problem of micromanaging the railroad construction, because this is, from a play pattern perspective, really not a fun experience. I wish they made it so that the AI would take care of it, because it does not seem fairly complicated, and it seems like a fairly simple heuristic. If you are on zero turmoil and you go over on infrastructure, just automatically put a railroad in the queue. Even if they have it so that the AI, the autonomous investment isn't covering it, but just the AI covers this detail, would be so huge. And put enough railroads to fully cover construction under the assumption that the railroads are getting full, they don't have an input like imbalance or something like this, that they're at full employment, that they don't have input goods shortage, or all these types of things. But currently it doesn't do that. Okay. Outliner enhanced with pinnable market goods and characters. This seems fine, especially when you care if someone's going to die or something like this. But I guess I never really feel the need to pin a character, but being able to pin market goods is really nice, especially if you're trying to specialize in something. Being able to, at a glance, check the price of something is very useful, especially if you're playing a really small country inside someone else's market, and you are entirely, like, exporting something like tools or clothes. Knowing when that changes in value is going to dynamically change how you approach the thing, and it will change in value a lot because your overlord will make trade routes, and these trade routes will drastically change profitability of things, whether they're import or export, when the trade route changes level. Reduce notification spam. Thank God. Currently, the really annoying thing is when you're scrolling in the outliner, and there's a notification spam, it's just, it crushes your ability to scroll. It's really annoying, so it makes it so you have to pause the game in order to scroll through the outliner, which I really don't like. I'd rather keep it unpaused, especially because I think it makes for a better viewer experience. But you can't, like, mechanically do it because there's so much spam. I really wish you could scroll through the outliner, and if you were scrolling through the outliner, the notifications did not, like, pop up or something like that. But, okay. They say we are going to cover some of these things in the dev diaries leading up to 1.2, so details on exactly what these entail may be sparse until then, fair enough. However, all of these will be in the beta build when we release it next week on February 8th. After the third and final beta release, but before the live update of 1.2, you can expect the beta build and the beta section of the Discord to become unavailable, as we will be channeling all resources into release. Fair. We will keep you updated on the expected beta build, blah, blah, blah. Our preliminary release date for 1.2, assuming all goes according to plan, is March 13th. So that's like a month and a couple weeks, something like this. For those of you who opt to continue playing on 1.1.2, until then you can follow the features, blah, blah, blah. So, something I really wish was in the game, or as part of the features that they haven't talked about, is how mechanics regarding... They made it sound like this was going to be a warfare patch, and then now it's really not looking like a warfare patch at all. It's... Okay, you have the improved AI handling of economy and military. Actually, this is really big. I skimmed over this. I kind of just went to this one. Let's just talk about this real quick. Currently, the AI sucks. They don't build enough construction, and they do something that is really asinine, which is that they build like infinite ports when they don't know what to build. It seems like if something's not profitable, or a certain threshold of profitable, they just default to building a port, which... makes it so that you get these like level 20 ports, and then they stick them on anchorages, so they basically give nothing, and they just suck up all the employment in the area, and then whenever you conquer a state, you have to just delete a bunch of ports because they've built way too many. And so this seems great. Yeah, I mean, it may be just because there's... Yeah, this seems fantastic. But notably, I was thinking this was going to be a warfare patch. I was hoping there would be an update to plays. Currently... Like, a world conquest just feels very, very, very difficult in the game because whenever you are involved in a diplomatic play, you cannot become involved in another one. I think this is stupid. I think when you have, a native uprising of 1 battalion and you are playing as Great Britain and you have 500 battalions, that maybe you should be able to declare war in the next 8 months. But currently what happens is if the play arises, you cannot declare war. You have to wait like 100 days for the play to pop. So like 3 months. And then, you quickly occupy them. But full occupying a country does not make them immediately surrender. And so, which is like, I think another silly mechanic. Instead, you have to keep and stay occupied on them for several months. And then after several months, they will capitulate. And you get this thing where basically if you get a native uprising, you get bricked for like 8 months. Even though it like, there's no realism in this. I understand that they want to prevent you from being able to declare multiple wars, I think, to prevent you from gaming stuff, but like, right, so like, you can't declare a war on one guy and then declare a war on like, or declare one war to get a war Actually, I think a lot of it has to do with the front system, that the front system, like, kind of breaks down when you have multiple wars, but, like, it's this thing where, if you start a war, and then you pull someone's ally into it, and then you start a separate war with them, I think maybe they're trying to avoid this type of thing so that you can get an isolated war without the ally. I'm not really sure. Another thing I really hate is when you are attacking a country, often you will cut off their market access and provoke a revolution. The revolution becomes a separate country that you cannot occupy. You should be able to occupy a country that's in the midst of a revolution. And the revolution should have to fight you too. And it's like, if the war goal is inside the revolution, then you're just like, your war gets bricked, basically. This is this is stupid, because it's not realistic. I would hope that I would want them to fix this. Also, military access is not in the game, so you get certain situations where you can start out as Luxembourg, declare war on the Netherlands. They have no access to you whatsoever, and so you just like automatically win the war, which is fair enough because you can't actually access their market. So and you're inside their market, so this is like really, really bad for you. But this is like an example of like something that could be fixed. I think you should be able to get overland access through other countries, both in trade and in military, with the use of convoys. And the convoy system should get overhauled to some degree to include overland travel. You shouldn't have just free trade with every country you're adjacent to. This is like too strong. And instead, there should be some sort of mechanic that it can be even tied to urban centers. Give like a small amount of convoys, and overland trade only requires a small amount of convoys, and this way you can, you can fix both military access, by allowing convoys through because they don't, you should also have to ask for military access, but not being able to get trade access through other countries just seems a little bit silly, especially for like Prussia, where if you lose the trade access, like you lose access to like the left third of your country or whatever it is. I haven't played as Prussia, but I've just seen it happen to the AI where they lose market access for their entire left side of Prussia, or the part that's not like concretely attached. They should be able to maintain the access through the use of convoys and something like this. And if you have to make overland convoys, like, as a separate mechanic, then, like, fine. But this should be something that's changed. As a bigger part of, like, warfare change, like, the economic system, it's not like I don't like the economic changes. I actually think that they're good, and they sound good, and it sounds like they're making, agrarian societies a little more viable. But I was expecting more military changes. I'm disappointed to not see more military changes. I haven't like touched diplomacy. I haven't done an alliance since like the release patch because alliances were broken. I guess maybe I should experiment a little bit more with that. Currently the AI is so weak that you like just don't need alliances anyways. I don't see anything about making the AI more aggressive in the face of you just like deleting all your military or whatever, or these sorts of things. Currently the only aggressive AI is the AI that's like coded to be aggressive. And so, like, you get, like, the Ottomans will always declare war on Egypt, and, like, the USA always declares war on Mexico. But that's kind of it, as far as... or also Prussia and Austria, like, always fight. But for the most part, the AI is not too... they're not too aggressive. Pretty happy to see this arable land revision migration balancing thing, because currently China's provinces are just, like, way too good. In a way that doesn't make sense, and so hopefully this makes it more sensible. But yeah, these are the military changes I can think of. I know there's a lot more that I have commented in the past in my videos, but I can't bring them to mind right now. Military changes that I would have liked to see. This doesn't look like a military patch. This just looks like a, kind of... They got the military strategic objectives, but that's kind of it. It just looks like kind of a generic fixing things up a little bit patch. I was really hoping for something quite a bit more substantive in 1.2, other than, kind of... They're making it sound almost like a DLC type patch, it feels like, because it's 1.2. But really, this is just like... in my mind, like, this is the biggest change is the economic stuff. And I wish they had focused on the military instead, but they didn't. But the economic changes are good. I don't know what to say. I would have. I'm itching to do a world conquest run as Greece. The reason being, Greece's country looks the same color as the ocean, so I thought it would be funny. I don't think that's possible right now, or even remotely close to possible, and so I'm going to be holding off on doing it. And I think it's because my biggest complaint is not being able to start multiple wars at once. Please fix that. I don't know. Anyways, this has just been a hopefully quickish overview of patch 1.2, my thoughts on what they're talking about. I will be switching, unless people want me to stay on 1.1.2, speak now or forever hold your peace. I assume people prefer the 1.2 stuff, and so I'll switch to that. But until then, have a good day. Feel free to do the YouTube algorithm stuff, like, comment, subscribe, share, etc. If you've been sitting a long time, which this video is not too long, but if you watched one before this, consider taking a walk. It's good for your health. Just gets the circulation flowing, even if it's like 5 minutes. It's also a nice little pattern interrupt. It's very easy to get just caught going video to video to video, because this is how the YouTube algorithm it encourages engagement, because they don't care about quality of life. They care about how many ads you are watching, right? That's how their incentive structure works. So it's better if you just stay glued to the computer. So this is kind of how it's encouraged to be. And so, but in terms of quality of life, just getting up and walking a little bit it's very low effort to return. And so feel free to do that. Or give it a consider, at least. And have a good one.